Roberto A. Almodovar. Exactly 1572 words. P.O. Box 1661. First North American Serial Rights, Klamath Falls, Oregon, 97601. Copyright 2012, 2014, 2018. ralmodovar@gmail.com. A Reason for Living, a.k.a. Bitches. 1. Bobo glanced up at the night sky shrouded in 100 billion stars and smiled with a smoke stem hanging from his jaws. In his lifetime he'd managed to visit more than just a few of them. He reflected on those early days of young adventures, joining the Rangers and piloting patrol sentries at the edge of the frontier. He had fought, killed, and sacrificed much. A blue streak across the night sky brought him back to the moment. Next to him on the raised wooden platform was an antique optical reflecting telescope mounted on top of a tripod pointed to the distant horizon where the stars kissed the silhouette tree line of the forest. Bobo took a long drag off his stem, savoring its sweetness, listened to the forest as it prepared to wake, then reached over to check the telescope. The power was on, computer was tracking okay, video was ready and the sky was clear. It was going to be perfect. "She's all set," Bobo said, handing over the smoke stem. He could see Teague's rough warrior-class features in the starlight, the valleys carved across skin and bone and scars of war, obtained through decades of service. These days he could see the wrinkles and the gray, and he smiled as Teague took the stem from him. After 40 years they were both still alive. Teague sat on a hover pad wearing an invisible shroud of warmth in the early morning pre-dawn night. "You just can't let that old thing go," said Teague, taking a drag off the stem, staring at Bobo's relic telescope once used by early humans. Teague's own cameras were calibrated and ready to capture the event. From the platform they had a direct view of the forest valley below, which disappeared into the horizon. Bobo built the observation platform on the highest peak within the optimum viewing window for a rare 3-star sunrise. During the early fleet expeditions to frontier space he was first to find a little uninhabited rock and laid claim to it. Later, after retiring there, he realized the 2 binary stars of the planet were circumvented by a third distant star every 5 years, visible for one morning only during its transit. "Haven't you learned anything?" said Bobo, watching his old friend put on an optical visor. "Anyone can see a tri-rise optical feed, but the only way to experience it, to really feel it, is with the naked eyes. Besides, this could be the last one we'll ever see together." "Yes, you remind me at every chance," said Teague, "but I'd rather die in one last blaze of glory than sit through another boring tri-rise." Bobo's comlink suddenly came to life, and when he tried not to answer it, Teague's came to life. "Security, it's 5 minutes to tri-rise. What the fuck are we paying you for?" Teague snarled, as Bobo frowned. Computer tracking showed the star rapidly approaching. "Sorry, but it's Ro Wade herself, requesting emergency landing permission." "Who?" Bobo blurted, trying to remain calm, glancing over at Teague, then rolling his eyes up with a frown. "The permission is granted," said Teague. "They're to land and wait in Bay 1, and take them down. I don't want the shuttle visible from the air." Teague looked back at Bobo. "I promise you I don't have a clue." "What in the hell is that bitch doing way out here? I came here to retire and escape bitches, especially that one. Timely, wouldn't you say?" "Well, it will take them a while to get here. Let's enjoy this first." "What luck," said Bobo, reaching over, turning off Teague's comlink. Moments later the tri-rise began. 2. Teague made it to Bay 1, and there she stood in the silhouette of her shuttle's landing lights, the young, petite and beautiful Princess Ro Wade, Bobo's heartbreak and only reason for living once. Next to her stood a very large and menacing Tyrium bodyguard. "Your Highness," Teague forced a smile. "He won't see me, I know," she blurted. Teague nodded, 10 years is a long time. Ro began to cry. My entire life has been a lie, she said to Teague. I could never tell anyone who we really were, not even to Bobo. All those years, he would have been killed, but it doesn't matter now. Ro, said Teague, why are you here? When Ro Wade raised her elongated leathery skull and pulled her hood back, Teague could see something terrible had happened to one side of her face. She was missing one of her beautiful eyes. Only 3 stared down at the deck. My entire family, my prince and his entire family have been slaughtered and my only son taken by agents of the 9th moon. I was left for dead, but Vlughai found me, brought me to you. I desperately need your help before the boy is harmed. Teague glanced over at the Tyrium and nodded, then back to Ro. Why would anyone would want your son alive and the rest of his royal family dead? Ro's 3 eyes looked into Teague's. I don't know, she pleaded, I swear it, but there isn't much time, they will kill him too if they haven't yet. Ro, after everything we have been through, what you have endured, what Bobo suffered, and after all this time, how can you still show up here asking him for help? Please, she said, collapsing to the deck. 3. Fuck that bitch, said Bobo, breaking down his telescope, glaring at Teague for letting her shuttle land. I don't want to hear it. I could give a whole rot's ass about her, her ridiculous religion or her family problems. You can tell her to please leave. Go pray to her God for help. There's more, said Teague. You might want to settle down, Bobo. What, more? Bobo, now grimacing, jaws displaying deadly sharp white ivory. Ro just passed away in the hangar bay. There was a moment of silence. We put her body in stasis quarantine. The weapon that carved off half her face was dipped in Barvelion poison, only found on the 9th moon, so they killed her after all. Bobo had learned to love and hate Ro over the years, but never wished her any harm. There was a time when she meant more to him than his own life. That time had long passed, but even that pain couldn't stop all 4 of his eyes from watering up. It was finally over and done. Before she died, continued Teague, she wanted to say she loved you best, and the one thing of hers that might mean something to you, that her son was not the prince's, but yours. Teague handed Bobo a hollow cube. His name is Erajitkai, but he knows about his real father, you. The boy was a miniature version of Bobo. He had the same reptilian elongated skull, light brown scales and chiseled jaws gleaming with the sharp white ivory of a predator. He had the same 4 red eyes, each on its own heavily armored short eye stalks of a male, and the same myriad of powerful and specialized tentacles supporting his body. Ro had named him Erajitkai, Bobo's real name. Biological and genetic DNA information floated around the image. Bobo gently placed one of his talons into the holographic image. There was a perfect genetic match. That's impossible, blurted Bobo, zooming in. Ro hated the idea of having my child, shivered in fear of anyone even finding out about us. He sure looks like you. Think about it, Bobo. Last time you saw Ro was 10 years ago. That's about how old he is. Bobo then picked up his telescope and let out a screech while throwing it out into the forest as far as he could, and slumped to the floor watching it tumble end over end, then glanced at the cube again. Motherfucking bitch, he screamed, tears rolling down his eye stalks. He was angry, and more so at himself, guilty he didn't give Ro the opportunity to tell him herself. She never told me, he sobbed. Teague gently hugged Bobo and looked into his wet eyes with her own beautifully longer female eye stalks. It's not your fault, she's gone now, but the boy, it's not his fault either. What about him? Bobo looked up at Teague with a half frown and rose back up. That bastard child, you mean my son, he said, staring up at the stars. Well, I guess we'll just have to go up and rescue that little son of a bitch now, won't we? The 2 old rangers looked at each other in a moment of silence. I'll prep the ship and ready the weapons, said Teague with a wide smile of deadly ivory. A final adventure at last, she knew like in the old days they would rain death and destruction on anyone that harmed Babo's newfound son and seek vengeance for the death of his mother. "Bitches," said Babo, wiping away tears of sadness and joy with a smile in the knowledge that he had a son and a new reason for living.